I was dumped by my ex-fiancé just before our wedding. 15 years later, she has returned, filled with scars and regrets, asking for another chance. She simply went without saying anything or leaving a note soon before our big wedding, and I never received an explanation. Her relatives couldn't understand either. She disappeared without a trace, leaving me and everyone else in the dark. Despite the fact that we had spent high school and college together, she didn't come back to me. Her parents had to inform me that she didn't want me around and had no plans to return. I never understood why she did it, but I was forced to honor her demands since she stopped communicating with everyone. I could only assume that she suffered a mental breakdown. I've battled the unsolved questions ever since, even though we were both young and still figuring life out then. She suddenly wants to meet up and DMs me on Facebook. Anger, anxiety, optimism, and despair are all over me. After all these years, I'm still attracted to her. Her Facebook profile makes me miss her, but I'm not sure if I could bring her back. She is unmarried and even more gorgeous than before. I'm torn. She says it's preferable to talk about it face to face, but she won't elaborate on why she left. All I can infer from her Facebook posts is a great deal of regret. She talks about loneliness, feeling weak, and leading a shameful existence. It's annoying. I should not have anything to do with her after she abandoned me. But the truth is that I couldn't stop thinking about her. What ought I to do? Should I confront her, ghost her back, or see where we might go with this meeting? TLDR. After more than 15 years, my ex-fiancé DMs me on Facebook and asks to go on a date. She abandoned me prior to our wedding, so I haven't spoken to her since. Important remarks. Wow. OP. That's difficult. It's been 16 years. Would you find closure you never got, or would seeing her set you back after all this time? OP. I'm not sure. All I want is closure. I believe she had cheated on me for a long time, but based on what her family and some friends told me, it appeared to be more of a mental breakdown. She was anxious about finals and her profession, and she was afraid about the wedding. She eventually made a comeback after ghosting everyone, but I was never involved. I've been thinking about her constantly. You should try to get closure by meeting her, but don't go and expecting her to return. You may not feel the same way about her today, but you do feel something for the person you knew. It's a long time to be abandoned like that, 16 years. Her motivations for contacting me after all this time seemed dubious to me. Avoid thinking about her too much, OP. What would be her motivation? She wasn't pregnant when she abandoned me, and I don't have any money or children. The disappearance was completely unexpected. She simply disappeared and never returned to school. To be honest, I think something went wrong. Revision, that was something. Then, at least, I had closure. We sat and chatted outside the cafe where we met. Her severely scarred arms and the intense pain imprinted on her face caught my attention right away. In summary, she acknowledged that she had intended to end the relationship long before the wedding but had been too cowardly and weak to advocate for herself. Everything caused her to have a total nervous breakdown. She felt unable to defend herself and was fed up with being forced to do things she didn't want to do. She was upset with her family for forcing her into a degree she didn't desire and for pressuring her to get married and start a family. She also felt angry at herself for lacking the guts to speak up. We both agreed that nothing she did was justified. I put her on the spot when I proposed to her for the first time in public. She wanted to refuse, but she couldn't risk hurting me. She was correct. I made all of her decisions back then. I was a very different person. I was self-centered, and she was submissive, just following the crowd without advocating for herself. I frequently muffled her speech, preventing her from developing or becoming her own person. Everything culminated at one point, and she suffered a total mental collapse. The only person she ever trusted, her best friend, advised her to flee her issues. She claimed that the only thing she knew how to do was to flee. Her life took a turn for the worse. She didn't say what she had done, but she ended up in prison for a while after being homeless for a few years, after being evicted by her best friend's husband. Since her release almost a year ago, she has been making efforts to improve her life. She ultimately got in touch with me, got a job, and reconnected with her parents. We both agreed that there isn't a future for us. We now live far apart and are two different persons who have nothing in common. She doesn't demand forgiveness or justify her actions. She is disgusted and ashamed of what she did. I just forgave her because I wanted to be furious but couldn't. After saying our goodbyes and shaking hands, it's likely that we won't see each other again. It's heartbreaking. At last, she and I were able to get the closure we sought. A weight seems to have been lifted. I now realize that we will never have a future together. However, I'm also upset because it's really over. It was all for nothing, all these years of hope. Not many people can say that. But in the end, this is an ending, and I finally found closure. Should I trust her story? I do indeed. And is it really important now? Even if she is full of it, she has always struck me as being very meek and weak-willed. When things get too tough, she usually just follows everyone's instructions and flees because she is too frail to deal with her issues. She avoids them. Her family was the usual tiger parents who deny their troubled child, so I guess it makes sense that they wouldn't tell me anything about her. TLDR, if it ends well, everything is okay. Finally, our relationship is over, and we can both move on. Important remarks. However, her companion ought to have been the one to notice it. Her companion acted as a facilitator. All of us were. The person who urged her to run was her friend. Anything was all up to her, of course. No one made her do anything. However, I might have anticipated it if I hadn't disregarded her issues and had instead been more involved in her life, but it is what it is. Wait a second, OP. Where did you find an open cafe? Asterisk, it's partially open. We sat in the parking lot and ordered takeout. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. The proposal shouldn't come as a surprise. You should be fully informed before proceeding. At some point, talk about it as something you both desire. If the other person isn't prepared, dropping it at random puts a lot of pressure on them. In actuality, she was correct. In order to ensure that she wouldn't say no, I purposefully proposed in public. All I could think of was myself. I never thought she was unhappy or that a public proposal may make her uncomfortable. You had a good ending, but she didn't. You seem to have contributed to her issues at the time. Have you shown regret for how you handled her? Did you make amends or provide assistance? To be honest, I felt horrible because I just wasn't there for her. I contributed to her anxiety and sorrow. I was prone to taking her for granted. She didn't want to hurt me, so she wanted to end the relationship. She believed that being married to me wouldn't be all that horrible. However, she simply broke. The idea of being in a lie-based, loveless marriage became too much. With a snap, she fled. I did love her, but to be honest, I wouldn't have been so oblivious to her needs if I really loved her. I could have liked the idea of her more than I actually loved her. This is forcing me to examine myself closely now. To the next story. Story 2. I get uninvited from my brother's wedding, then get harassed by his family for not caring enough. Org post. This whole thing is so weird. I, 27M, am gay. I came out at 16, and my parents told me they would always love me, but to not mention it to my older brother, who I'll call Brock, then 19, 33M now. When I was confused and asked why, they said that Brock had expressed some awful opinions about gay people. I limited talking to Brock until I moved out at 18, which wasn't much of a problem because we were never close. I went to uni, got a good job, and an awesome boyfriend, 28M, in my home city. Me and my boyfriend, Clyde, live a peaceful life. Peaceful until a few days ago when I got a call from my brother. I was concerned that Brock was calling me, as we have never messaged before, just had each other's numbers for emergency purposes. I picked up because maybe there was some emergency happening. He opened the call with an annoyed, "Hey man," and I knew something was up. He said he was getting married to his fiancée, Beth, 24F, next year. I didn't even know he had a girlfriend. I was like, "That's great, Brock," and asked some boring wedding things that he begrudgingly answered. He then told me invites were being sent out in a couple of weeks and that I could bring a +1. Here's where I made the mistake that started this mess. Without thinking, like an idiot, I said, "Cool, I'll bring my boyfriend." Major mess up. Brock immediately started yelling insults down the line, screaming that he wouldn't have an FF slur at his wedding. I didn't say anything and just hung up. I was rattled by hearing those words from my own brother's mouth, even though I knew his feelings about people like me. I told Clyde, and he comforted me, ordering in my favorite restaurant and watching movies with me, which was awesome. We went to bed later, and I felt all right. The next day, I sent my parents a message that Brock invited me and uninvited me from his wedding pretty much in the same breath, and went on my way to work. Not a clue of the crap storm waiting for me when I got off. When I turned my phone on again after my shift, it was blowing up, messages and calls from my parents and relatives galore, asking me what the F happened. I phoned my parents back when I got home and gave them the rundown of what happened and said honestly didn't care because it's not like Brock would be coming to my wedding anyways. My parents immediately chastised me for my obvious disinterest and disregard of my brother's life and told me I should be apologizing to him for bringing my personal life into his wedding. What? I basically told my parents to screw off and have been getting bombarded with messages from relatives to apologize to my brother, get my invite reinstated, and apologize to my parents for disrespecting them, but I really don't want to. Clyde's reassuring me that I did nothing wrong, but it's still nagging me. Ida? Relevant comment number 4988. Why did your brother sound annoyed at the beginning of the call? Did he already know? Or was he being forced to invite you by your parents? Seems weird. OOP. He's never been my biggest fan, honestly. We were very different as kids, like polar opposites, and he didn't like that. Very on brand for him. He definitely didn't know I was gay before the call. In terms of if he was being forced to invite me by my parents, I really have zero clue. Update post. My OG post got locked/removed per some misunderstanding/confusion with the AIT mods while trying to post this update. But I'll just post it on my page here without an r/ if anyone wants to see it. Y'all have really opened my eyes on a lot of issues in my family. I apologize for only replying to a few comments. There's just so many of you. Big shout out to all the people who gave compliments to Clyde. I showed him this post last night, and he thanks you all. I've been showing him lots of love because he really is an angel. And to the people calling this fake, AI, cliche, and whatnot, I hate to break it to you all, but this is just my life. It sounds cliche because this is the sort of all-too-real thing that happens to many people in the community. Just move along if you want to say that stuff, because you're honestly just wasting your time. One of two things I would also like to address is people questioning me about thinking I could possibly be the in this situation. And all I can say is that when you have a mass of people telling you you're wrong for what you did, it's hard to not maybe believe them just a little bit, no matter how absurd it is. Second thing, for people wondering how no one in the family knew I was gay, I really was never/am not close with my extended family, as they all live in different provinces and my immediate family never traveled. We really just send each other holiday and birthday messages and have brief conversations whenever those are sent, and I just never had the urge to come out to them anyways. On to the update. I decided I didn't want to let this sit for any longer. I took a day off work, and I added my parents, Brock, and all the family that messaged and called me into one big group chat. Per one advice I saw here, I laid out everything that went down to them in case they were told a different story by my parents and brother. I told them that I was going in C with my parents and Brock no matter what, and if they didn't apologize and realize what they did wrong, or I cut them off too. I turned my phone off and continued on without it for the rest of the day. Once I turned my phone on again, I had lots of messages from them. My parents were outraged, and Brock said nothing. Some of my extended family apologized and told me that my parents just told them I was mean to Brock about some of his wedding plan choices, which got me uninvited. Still trying to wrap my head around how stupid that is. Seriously think my parents might be Neanderthals. Anyways, the Rayal story made others even more angry and more insistent that I apologize, and they were promptly blocked. I didn't answer any of my parents' texts/calls and blocked them. I feel like I have a weight off my shoulders. I'm not concerned about my parents showing up at our apartment, as they moved away from my city last year. Me and Clyde are planning a lovely trip, per advice of a lot of people that we thought was great, to France to visit his family during when the wedding will be taking place, which I'm very excited for. I've heard nothing but good things about them. This will most likely be my only update on this post, and I thank you all for your support. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.